I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is Brian Sherman. Brian is Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer for Delta Dental of California and its affiliates. Brian leads a variety of functions, including talent acquisition, talent development and learning, organizational effectiveness, people relations, experience and insights, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, business resilience, total rewards, and the Delta Dental Community Care Foundation and corporate social responsibility. Brian has more than 2 decades of people operations experience, including management, human resources strategy, U.S. labor and employment law, and human resources technology. Prior to joining Delta Dental of California, Brian held roles as Chief Human Resources Officer at Healthy Living Network, Vice President of Human Capital at Optum, and Human Resources Director at Dignity Health. Brian holds a bachelor's degree in business administration, human resource management from Cal State Chico, and a master's degree in organizational development from the University of San Francisco. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Greg. Happy to be here.
I am so glad to have you here, given your background and experience and expertise. Where I want to start with you today, because it's something that we were talking about just before we hit record, is around the impact that we have as leaders. And you grow leaders as a chief people officer, but you're also a leader yourself. You've got a team and you've had teams. And so you know what it takes to show up and lead others. So what do you hope when you think about the impact that you're having? What are you hoping that people are saying about you when you're not around?
There's 2 things that really come to mind with that question. And one, I'd say, I hope people are saying Brian's a business leader. He's a business professional who specializes in human capital, human resources, people. And that's his area of expertise. But first and foremost, he's a leader in the business. Secondly, when we think about impact, and I love that question, and this comes up for me, I think about this quite a bit, is really, what am I trying to accomplish? Like, what's that bar of measure that I look for? And I distinctly remember I attended a conference once, and they asked the audience, like, who in your experience, in your career, in your life, has really had that positive impact on your career? Who's the leader that you think of when you think about who's helped you advance your career, overcome challenges, and go ahead and write down their name. And in that moment, I just thought, that's it. I want someone to write down my name. That's my goal. Of all the things that I've done in my career, of all the things that I hope to still achieve in my career, that's the measure. That's the bar for me, is I'm thinking, if I'm not in the room, if I am no longer, in the organization, is someone going to write down my name still and think positively about the impact that I had on them and their career and their life?
I love that. And I do that kind of an exercise with leaders and that I coach and with teams all the time. And until you said that, when we were talking, I never thought, I would love for someone to write down my name.
Right? When you think about it, there's a feeling you get of this sense of pride that you've achieved something, right? You've impacted someone's life positively. It's simple in its concept, but profound in the impact that it can have.
Absolutely.
And I love it. And I hope that I will have that impact on someone or multiple someones if I'm doing a really great job as a leader.
So positively impacting people's lives as a leader. So what do you do every day in order to make that aspiration a reality?
I mean, I focus on leadership or relationships first. Really, getting to know people, being there for them, understanding, what matters to them in their lives, what are they dealing with, where are they headed, in their career, what are the goals that they have for themselves, looking for those intersection points and listening and just showing genuine, sincere caring for them as a person. And yeah, I think that's where it starts, is really in building strong relationships.
How do you help your leaders get better at that? Because that doesn't just happen, right? I mean, we can get better at that. As good as some people are naturally, maybe, it's a skill that we can develop. So, how do you help leaders get on that same path that you are on?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. There are people who are naturally gifted at this, and then there are those who perhaps it's a bit more of a challenge. And I own it was a challenge for me. When I started my career, my focus was advancing my career and just really knowing the technical and the compliance elements of what my job was and being really good at that above all else. And I had a leader that I worked with who told me one day, Brian, you are intelligent enough and capable enough to be a leader in our organization. But what it was holding you back is no one wants to work for a robot. You have to drop the concern for being the subject matter expert and figure out how to better connect with people so that they will want to follow you. They will invite your leadership. And it sticks with me to this day, that conversation. She was an incredible leader, very impactful for me. And, so I think about that and know the journey I had to go through. So I have that conversation. I share that experience with my leaders. I highlight where they have natural ability and encourage them to lean into that. I highlight it for others to see great examples of that. One concept that I think is really important as you're developing leadership and you're trying to create, a strong team is shared vulnerability. I think that when we share what's working well for us, when we share those things that are concerning for us or that we're struggling with, we can create bonds that allow us, to build better relationships and thus more productive or high performing teams.
Yeah, well, and I think the sharing where you're struggling is even more impactful than sharing, here's what works for me, right? That really, I still, after all these years, sitting in the chair, this is what I still struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny as you talk about that of putting people first and then being earlier in your career, like trying to build that business acumen. I remember a few years ago, I was doing a development program for a group of early career high potentials, and we had all these CFOs in our organization agree to mentor them, as a part of the experience. And one of the early career folks asked one of the CFOs, what do they need to learn in order to be on the right track in terms of career development? And the CFO said, without skipping a beat, you have all the business acumen that we want you to have. You know finance. And I'm a CFO and I spend maybe 10% of my time looking at spreadsheets. If you want to accelerate your career path, focus on building your capability to be with other people and engage other people and lead other people, because that's going to be 90% of your job, is taking care of people.
I completely agree. Whoever that CFO was or is, very intelligent individual. I think the ability to build and foster human connection is extremely powerful in everything we do in life, but it has particular impact when you're in the business world.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So as you've encountered challenges, let's go there a little bit, right? So what are some of the challenges that you encountered as leading change in the organizations that you've worked in, or just, trying to be a good leader with your team? What are some of the challenges that you have faced and what have you done about them?
Yeah, I mean, kind of staying on the same theme, I'd say, right? When we think about change management, in particular inside of an organization, it's a small change, big change, right? I mean, it varies on what you're doing, but ultimately, the human side of change, human behavior elements of change, I think are what we miss most often, right? And everyone's focused on the process will change from A to be. The technology will change and bring these new features. And we just need to tell people that. But what they fail to recognize is those are the simple things in change to explain. They're very concrete, right? They're hard facts. What's not a hard fact and what's harder to address and people seem to have less focus on is the impact that has on an individual. What's the user's new experience? Does it change their job and what they do? And have they built a 10-year routine of doing it the way it was done before and now you want them to change? How do you nurture that? How do you support them through that change experience? So yeah, similar thing, right? Human side of the business is so important, but often overlooked because it's the hardest to understand and that scares people. And so they just don't, they want to lean on the things that are easy to understand and address.
Yeah, I make the distinction between change management, which is we're going to change a system or change the structure, and here's the process, and that happens. It's an external event. We can announce something that this change is going to occur on this date or in this way. Change leadership is addressing what you're talking about, the people side of it, that people hear that announcement and then all these questions are in their heads. What's changing? Why is it changing? How's it going to impact me? What's the impact on my team? How's it going to happen? What am I going to have to let go of? What am I going to have to change? So what's going to be different? And so they can find their place in this new order. And everybody experiences that in a different way and at a different pace.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about in my career, I've done changes that are simple system changes, right? Business process changes, as you described. And I've also been a part of joint ventures, mergers, where thousands of employees have been impacted and they are changing from one company that perhaps they've worked at for decades, right? And they're proud of their brand, they're proud of the organization, the work that happens there. And now they're moving to a new company that they don't know. And we can send out all the material and communications that we want. But the most impactful aspect of change that we always found was when we got in front of them in person and we sat down and had conversations. And they had the space to air their concerns of what does this mean for me? Where do I fit into this new world? And when we could address that face to face and build a human connection and convey the sincerity of our support and concern for their well-being, that's when change happened. That's when people accepted and they felt safe. And you can see those types of activities, those bigger changes really start to take root.
And the fact that you take that time for those one-on-one conversations, there's a mindset there that is really powerful. It's respectful of the other person. And it's an awareness that I can't change this other person. Their circumstances is changing, but I can help them want to come along. And it's because it's taking that time for those connections and those conversations. And that's the change leadership aspect, is I think the container for that change management to be successful.
Yeah, it's amazing how much just offering someone your time can be impactful for them, right? To just know that you're willing to give of your time to be with them, to sit with them, to answer their questions and to help them through a change or whatever the circumstance is. Just giving of your time is one of the most valuable things that you can do as a leader.
Yeah, so that's a big one because the demands keep increasing, especially on team leaders, that there's a lot to juggle. And so how do you ensure that you are creating space to give time to people when they need it?
I think being committed to being a leader is so important as the first step. So often someone gets moved into a leadership role because they were really good at the work itself. And that's safe. If I'm really good at that work and that's what got me promoted and I know it, it's safe to continue to do that work because I know I show value. Being a leader is really hard. It's the hardest job that anybody will take on, aside from being a parent. Very difficult. But being a leader is really difficult and it's scary in a lot of ways because you don't always have all the answers. So I think the biggest thing is being committed to being a leader and knowing when to delegate the work itself, right? The work of the unit, the work of the team, delegate to the right people, those subject matter experts, so that you can create capacity, so that you can give your time, so that you can spend it thinking about what you need to do differently to support the team, to give them what they need so that they can be enabled to be successful.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to have all the answers. You have
Never
to
will.
trust that the team has the answers, and your job is to engage them and pull those answers out of them and help them with to know that they have their own solutions most of the time.
Yeah, create space for them to bring solutions to the table, empower them to do so, and make sure that it's safe for them. That if they bring a solution or an idea, they're not denigrated if you don't like the idea or if the idea doesn't work. You're going to experiment, you're going to take informed risks, and you're going to give them the space to do that. That's how we will all learn, and that's how they'll advance. And as they find that space to learn and advance, you'll be a better leader for it.
Yeah. Is there, from your perspective, is there a behavior or a practice that if everybody on the team agreed to follow it and lived it, that the team's performance would improve or go up?
I think space for everyone to have a say, right? And that's not about getting stuck in consensus and waiting for everyone to agree, but it's allowing space for everyone to voice an opinion, to everyone to bring an idea or solution to the table, and to honestly and sincerely evaluate it and give it the opportunity that it deserves. Not every idea is going to be the right answer, but when everyone feels like they have safety and the opportunity to voice their opinion, then that diversity of thought will benefit you, right? And the team's going to be better for it because someone's idea may not be right, but it might be the start of the right idea that sparks someone else's thinking. And then the team's working dynamically together and feeding off of each other, and you're going to have that success.
So we've talked a lot about this way of leading and this idea of leadership that you bring that I'm hearing in our conversation. It really resonates with me. And so I'm curious then, how do you stay growing as a leader, as the kind of leader that you aspire to be? What's your development journey like?
It's interesting as you get to higher and higher levels, right? And being the chief people officer of an organization, I spend a lot of time with my peers in the C-suite and other leaders in the company, helping them through their work. And so looking for opportunities for myself to continue to develop beyond reading and trade journals and things of that nature that help with thought leadership or just business acumen building, because I'm constantly trying to learn other aspects of the business and be better. One of the things I've really enjoyed more so lately that I've discovered is that opportunity where I have been meeting CEO founders of startup organizations, and then they're playing in our space, doing great things with HR technology, hearing their journey, hearing how they get started, hearing about the things that they're focused on, how they solution challenges. It's really inspiring. It's really invigorating to see these individuals who've encountered real problems and they've taken the risk, they've taken that step out. And it makes sometimes the things that I'm dealing with feel a little bit smaller and easier to tackle, right? It gives that sense of confidence that, look, if I've talked to this CEO founder and they're trying to tackle a massive issue in our environment, I can go show up at an award ceremony and give a speech in front of 150 people, right? And so it gives scale, right, to the challenges that we face. And that's where I'm at, is trying to push myself beyond some of my comfort zones and taking up opportunities when they're presented.
I love that, getting out of the comfort zone, right? That's where the fun stuff happens, right? That's where we learn, right? Yeah. I usually close coaching meetings and team meetings by asking folks, what are they grateful for? So that's my question to you as we finish here. I'm very grateful that we got to spend this time together and for our conversation today. I'm curious, what are you grateful for today?
Well, I certainly share in that gratitude because this is one of those things that's outside my comfort zone. I've not done this before. And so this is a great opportunity again for me to stretch my skills and learn and grow myself. But to the question itself, what am I grateful for? Clearly, my family. I have an amazing wife and great children, and they're just wonderful humans to watch grow and develop. And the support of my wife means everything. I couldn't have accomplished anything in my career without her support. Beyond that, I tell my team this, and I hope they hear it often enough. And I do expect that they will listen to this. So I want them to hear it here and all of your listeners. I work with the single greatest collection of talent I have ever worked with in my career. across my company, but particularly within my team. The leaders on my team, the staff members on my team, they're passionate about what they do. They care about our employees, and they give of themselves to do better for everyone else. They're so talented and capable, and I'm grateful for them every day because I know I can rely on them, and I know that they have everyone's best interest at heart.
I love it. They're lucky to have you. You're lucky to have a great team. Great teams are made. They aren't born. So I know it takes work and it takes attention from a good leader to make a great team. So on behalf of your team, thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being with me today. There was a whole bunch of wisdom. So you did an awesome job. So I want to tell you that. And people are going to have a great time listening to this episode. So I really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom with us today. And so that is another episode of Ultra Leadership. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.